Welcome back to the TV program, everybody. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today's video is just trying to accomplish three things. First of all, I want to thank everybody for reached out to me and expressed their concern over my last video. Well, it was a video I did about 3 weeks ago. It was simply titled, I Am Going Blind. So if you want to watch that video first, before we get into this one, just type in my last name, Durfee, the word blind, and the video will magically appear upon your TV screen or your phone, whatever you're using. Anyway, I put that video out about 3 weeks ago because I had a medical condition in my eyes which caused some, well, anyway. Just go watch that video if you want to see that. A lot of you reached out to me via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even my own website, to express your concern and how sorry you felt over the things that I was going through in this video. Is first of all, a thank you for that. Secondly, it's an update to let you guys know where I stand now with my vision. And then thirdly, well, because I brought the subject up and you all expressed a lot of concern, and so now I think I owe you a little bit of an update. And then thirdly, and maybe most importantly, I want this video, along with my previous video about going blind, to be sort of a pair of videos that stay on YouTube forever, that sort of explain the disease that I have, what it's about, for people that maybe are going through the same thing with the same disease, or for those of you that don't know what it is, maybe a tutorial on what it is and how to prevent it from happening in your own life, because it is actually preventable. Now, the disease is called, and the graphics will show up magically on your screen, what the disease is. And no, I just wrote it down. I don't do graphics. I don't edit in graphics. The disease is called retinal vein occlusion. That's what it's called. We do things very high tech on this show, as you can see. Retinal vein occlusion. That is what we are talking about. So, let me explain the disease in the simplest way I can and what happened to me, because I have the disease in both eyes now. It started in my left eye 6 or 7 years ago. Now I've just been diagnosed with it in my right eye. But let me go over this and kind of explain what's going on. So what I want you to do, this will help you understand what I want you, what's going on. I want you to take a hardcover book. I want you to open it up and just close one eye off. Doesn't matter, you can do this with either eye. Close one eye off and focus just on one word in the center of that book. Kind of like, let's say this is the page of the book, and you're focusing on the one word in the center, okay? What you're going to realize is your eyesight is very finite. Your eyes just only focus on that word. Now, when you focus just on that word, don't dart your eyes around the page, because then everything is going to be in focus, and we don't want that. We just want you to concentrate on that one word with just one eye. And what you're going to notice is that word is in focus, but the words just around it, you might be able to see them in focus too, maybe not. But then the words a little further out start to get into your peripheral vision range, where you can still tell what the word maybe says, but it's just a little blurry. And then further out, it just becomes blurrier. And then further out on the page, these words you can know that you know they're words, but you can't read them at all. And then clear out on the edges of the page, it's just blurry. And then beyond the book, it's just shapes and movement, and it's your peripheral vision is taken. But all 99.999% of your vision is just focused on this one little area. People don't realize that. If they're looking at a cityscape, they think everything's in focus because their eyes are constantly darting around and focusing on every little thing. But if they were to just close your eyes and just focus on one skyscraper, and the other skyscrapers are just sort of blurry. They blur out, just like the words on the page. So what happens with retinal vein occlusion is it happens in the back of the eye. It's a stroke in the back of the eye. What is a stroke? Well, a stroke is a blood vessel bursts in your body and starts spraying blood all over the place. It's not a good thing. It's horrific. Strokes can happen in your eye, and especially if they happen in the retina, they can just damage your vision. What happens with some people, now what happened with me is, let's say we're still looking at the book, and the stroke happened over here in my peripheral vision. Boom. That's where the stroke happened. So 6 or 7 years ago, I had a stroke in the left eye over here, and boom, it blocked out. The blood started spraying around, and it just made this part of my peripheral vision go blind. I kind of noticed it. I mean, I would read a book, like let's pretend that I'm reading the book and I'm seeing these words in the center, but I noticed everything was blurry as normal in peripheral vision, but this area over here was just absolute muddy, blocked out, almost black and shadow. And I'm like, well, that's strange. But, and then what happens with the stroke and the retinal vein occlusion is slowly over time, the blood keeps spreading and swelling that retina. And the swelling just slowly creeps and gets bigger. And so over the period of months, the swelling was like this. And I was noticing that if I would read a book and I would close my eye, I would notice, if I would do this, I would notice, well, this is still in focus. But my gosh, everything else is blurry as normal. But this whole half of my eye is just an oblivion of nothingness. Of course, mostly that would alarm people. It alarmed me, but I'm thinking, I just need new glasses. I just need a new prescription. That's all I need. It'll go away. It'll reverse itself. Whatever's going on in there, no, I don't need to worry about that. I mean, let's face it, I'm stubborn. It's like, this is how I am. I have always been this way. Like an example is I love the Sizzler restaurant, and they have a delightful salad bar. There's a macaroni salad that I love there. And I remember one day I got a plate of the macaroni salad. I took a bite and I'm like, ooh, that's gross. That doesn't taste like it normally tastes. So I take another big bite and I'm like, yeah, something's wrong with that. I take another bite and I'm like, well, maybe it's spoiled or rotten or something. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just those first 3 bites. So I take another bite and I'm like, there's something's definitely wrong with that. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. Oh, it's just getting worse. By the time I was done testing whether it was awful or not, I'd ate the whole plate. And then I'm surprised on the drive home when I have to pull over in a church parking lot and vomit all over the pavement. Same thing when I'm shooting 3-pointers one day at the high school 3-point line. Boom, boom, hitting them. I mean, I'm expecting the Utah Jazz at any moment to recruit me onto the team. I'm just nailing 3-pointers, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to back up to the NBA line if I really want to play for the Jazz. I'm going to back up to the NBA line and shoot some threes. So I back up, and I'm like, oh, it changes your shot entirely. I'm just like, great. I'm like, oh, something didn't feel right in the shoulder. Let me try it again. Oh, yeah, that's painful. I mean, well, maybe that'll go away on the 3rd shot. Oh, no, that got worse. Well, let me try it again. Oh, 25 shots later, I've torn my rotator cuff, right? That's just the way I am. So I'm here looking at these, so here I am reading books, noticing that my vision is getting worse and worse. I can't do paintings. My eyes are straining. Things are getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, what's happening is because I'm not going to the hospital, this just keeps swelling and swelling, getting closer to this area where the finite vision is, and eventually the swelling covers that, and I can't see anymore. And that's when I go to the hospital. That's when I go to the eye doctor. And they diagnosed me with, again, retinal vein occlusion. They said, you've had a stroke in your eye, and it's swelled up to the point where it's blocking your vision. What they do for that is they give you an injection, a needle into your eye with medicine that supposedly doesn't heal it. There's no cure for this, folks. Doesn't heal it. It just hopefully reverses that swelling so you can get your vision back. So this finite point comes back. It definitely stops it. The medicine stops it from getting worse and hopefully reverses it. Well, I could tell that it stopped it from getting worse, but it never reversed it. I've just been blind in this eye for the last 6 years. Now, some people unfortunately, they get the stroke. Let's say you're looking at the book again and you're focused on this is where your vision is. Some people, a lot of people, my stroke happened, over here. So some people get the stroke right at the center and it just they immediately go blind. Some people are just driving their car and the next thing they know is like, boom, they're just, boom, blind. And that happens. That happens quite a bit. So that was 6 years ago. At the time, they said, well, you've got these weird spikes in your blood pressure. That's what causes it. You need to start exercising more, eating healthy. I did that for about 6 months. And then I gave up. I love my Dorito chips and Cheetos and popsicle dinners that I eat every night. And I didn't want to eat asparagus and beets and grass mulch mixed into shakes. I didn't like that. I'd rather eat, Coke, Pepsi, and cheeseburgers. That's just me. And a hot dog too. So then I went back to the bad health and the non-exercising. Just recently, what happened was, in my right eye, I started noticing the same thing. When I would read, when I would look just out of my right eye, when I do this and I would look just with my right eye, I would notice, I could see this, but up here, things were starting to become mush, blurry, and just black oblivion. I was like, oh my gosh. It's starting again in this eye, I can tell. And I could tell it was slowly creeping down, the swelling. So I knew, I was like, I've had a stroke. I've had another retinal vein occlusion. And it did. It was up here, it was up here. And it was slowly starting to creep down. And it was happening daily. I could tell daily that the swelling was getting, because I could see it as I would read, I would do and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went to the doctor again. And they said, yes, you've had another stroke in your right eye this time. And the swelling is slowly creeping down onto this spot. So again, if I'm reading this word on the page, I can still see the word and I can still read. All this stuff is peripheral vision and blurry, but this stuff is just a void of absolute oblivion and nothingness and mush and stuff. And the swelling would creep down almost to the point that it was touching that very, very pinpoint of vision that I have left in my right eye. In fact, when they did the retinal scan, the swelling had creeped up to that point, to the point where I've only got a fraction of the width of a hair to go before that swelling overtakes this part of the eye, just like it did in my left eye, and kills my vision. So now I'm getting the shots in both eyes. And these shots, I tell you, they ain't no joke. They hurt like and it's monthly. They put this medicine into your eye in hopes that with my right eye, it will stop that swelling from overtaking my vision and maybe reverse it so I gain more of this peripheral vision back. But that's where I stand right now. Is if I am looking at a book right now, if I close my left eye and try to read a book, I can't see anything. If I close, let's see, if I'm looking through my left eye only trying to read a book, I can't see anything. If I'm looking through my right eye trying to read a book, I can barely still see the words on the page, so I can still read. All this is oblivion up here. Everything else is kind of normal. That's the way it is. We put the two together. My right eye over here still dominates. This one's pretty much useless. This one's dominating. But when we put these two together and we look through both eyes at the same time, it's hard to read a book or even look at a computer screen. I usually have to close my left eye here because it's dead and just rely solely on this. When I'm driving, it's easier with both eyes because now I've got peripheral vision everywhere, which is still, useful. Let me give you another example of what this is like with this drawing here. Let's take, this drawing is of your eyeball. Now this is the front of your eye, which has the vision, which you're seeing out of it. This is the back of your eye, which is the retina. And the retina is sort of shaped like this. Now what happens is, if you have your stroke, this is the pinpoint that sees everything right here. So all the vision goes, let's see if I can do it. All the vision goes straight out the eye like that. This is the pinpoint that sees the one word on the page. And it comes from right here. Now, if you have a stroke right there, you'll go blind immediately. But, you know, my stroke was up here. So, boom, what happens is you have a stroke and it's like, boom. It blows the eye out right here. Boom, the stroke happens. This part of your vision is immediately gone. This part of your peripheral. And it starts spraying blood and swelling the retina back here. And the retina starts to swell. Daily, monthly, weekly, the swelling goes. And the swelling gets bigger like this. And it just starts to block out the vision. And it gets closer and closer to this pinpoint. And this is where the swelling is right now. It's so close to this pinpoint that it's just a hair's breadth away from overtaking it. But if it overtakes this and starts to swell over it like that, which has happened on my left eye, if my right eye gets swollen like that, my vision is gone. So that is a brief tutorial about what retinal vein occlusion is all about. I hope that made it clear to you what I am going through. And again, I appreciate all of your well wishes that you offered me 3 weeks ago on my original video about myself going blind. I appreciate that. I read every single message anybody sent to me, whether it was a YouTube comment, an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, or even if you emailed me privately off my website. I read them all, and I appreciate every single one of you. And I hope this little tutorial helps people, because it's preventable. I've told you how to prevent this. Just eat healthy. And what's happened in the 3 weeks since I was diagnosed with this, like once I was diagnosed with another stroke in the eye, they took my blood pressure. They're like, oh my God, you're a walking stroke victim. Well, how are you even standing? They rushed me to the ER. They kept me for a few days, tried to get my blood pressure down, which they did. It's stabilized. I'm on blood pressure meds now, which officially makes me an old person. I think when you start taking blood pressure meds, you are categorized as ancient. But you know, like I said, it's preventable. When people say that your eating habits can affect every part of your body, they're not just talking about your feet, your legs, your gut, your heart. They're talking about your eyesight too. I made the mistake. I tried to call Mother Nature's bluff, and she had a better hand. Yeah, you know what I mean? She called my bluff is what happened. And anyway, that is the thing, and I hope you guys learned something from it. I hope people that Google retinal vein occlusion or type it in and can see my videos and understand that other people go through the same thing. And I hope I described it well enough for you to understand. And so that is my update. Again, thanks everybody, and I'll stop the video now before I keep